Yes, sir. Welcome back to Talking Nets, episode 54. Episode 54. Keith McPherson and Hudson Flynn coming to you on Wednesday, right after the Steve Nash press conference. And what a job well done by Steve Nash, the Brooklyn Nets, and the Yes Network, as well as Michael Grady, Sarah Kustok, Ian Eagle, Frank Isola. I enjoyed that. I'm a press conference guy. I went to school for communications, media, studied journalism a little bit, radio, television. I like the presentation, even though it was a virtual thing. They did it at the Nets workout facility. They did it all through Zoom. You could hear Alex Shifter, Kristen Winfield, a couple different reporters that we're familiar with, Nets Daily guys, Athletic guys, New York Times. And I just thought Steve Nash did the best that he could handling the questions. I thought that Steve Nash answered the tough questions well. And I think he's a guy that is more than trained, more than prepared to handle the New York media. So that box is checked off. Hudson, what were you feeling just, as this press conference went down and you're looking at the new Brooklyn Nets head coach?
I mean, let me tell you, nothing better than a good, well-done press conference. And nothing better when you're rooting for the guy giving the press conference and he delivers. And he delivered and he did good and he did exactly what everyone expected of him. He came out with that poise that you saw when he was a player. He had absolutely no fear, no shutdown, no nothing in the face of the New York media as well as the national media. We had ESPN, we had all the outlets. I mean, this is the story in basketball outside of the playoffs right now. So it's good that he came out there and he impressed. But obviously, with a hire like this, in the climate that we're in, it's never going to be as easy as coming out and having a good press conference. There's always going to be detractors, and there's always going to be other narratives that are going to get pushed and talked about in regards to a hiring like this, especially given everything that's going on in the NBA and in America and in the world, at large. And one of the first things we saw, when it came to response to this, and this happened right as soon as it was announced in the morning. And then right on First Take, Stephen A. Smith comes on the air and he says that this is a hire that is based or that shows the white privilege that certain people have, that a first-time head coach can be hired with no experience and, come out there as a white guy and get that job over other qualified candidates. And he did further clarify his stance as he had more time to think it over, in the week since this has happened. He talked about the Rooney Rule and how, yes, Jacques Vaughn did get an interview, but was it a Rooney Rule type interview? Was it an interview that was just done to check a box? And I mean, my opinion is no. I don't think it was an interview done to check a box. I'll toss it to Keith because obviously he has more of a personal stake in all of this and all of these issues than I do. But, Stephen A. Smith said that him not having any experience, Steve Nash not having any experience is where the privilege lies. And I want to hear what you have to say about this one, Keith.
Yeah, so I threw this in the notes last week, and obviously, a few days have gone by and the narrative has grown and people have weighed in, and I think some people's opinions have changed. But one, I wanted to speak about the Rooney Rule, and this is for people that might not follow the NFL and might not know exactly what that is, but the NFL put that in place because they literally had to. And since the Rooney Rule, they've still had issues with African Americans getting the opportunity to even be interviewed for head coaching spots. In the NFL, you got guys like Brian Flores, head coach of the Miami Dolphins, I think, benefited from the Rooney Rule. But I just think it's different than this net situation. Jacques Vaughn did get interviewed. So if there was some type of Rooney Rule in the NBA, which there is not, Jacques Vaughn did get interviewed. And then also, I don't think there's a Rooney Rule in the NBA because there is a penalty for, these NFL teams that don't comply with the Rooney Rule every year. Like they have to interview an African-American for the job of head coach if they're looking for a head coach every year. And I think they can lose either draft picks or something like that. So the Nets did interview Jacques Vaughn. And I think what Stephen A. said, like, I understand it, man. I'm someone that struggled in the corporate world in New York City, interviewing, sending in resumes, one day when I'm really on top, when I really make it, I plan on telling my story about how I interviewed at about 100 different places, how I sent resumes in that got ignored, how people passed on me, how I had jobs that I thought I had in the bag, thought I crushed the interview, and I didn't get them. But I never really threw it to the fact that I was black. I never really leaned on the fact that I was a black man trying to make it. I just said, hey, maybe it wasn't the right fit for me. And with Steve Nash, I don't think we can keep leaning into this white privilege. I don't think that's where the issue lies. Now, if you want to talk about head coaching experience or his lack thereof, absolutely. He's never done it. He's never even done it as an assistant coach. We haven't seen him on a bench in the NBA. But I do not co-sign this whole theory of him getting the position being white privilege. I don't even think him being white is in the top 10 factors. If they were to write down the top 10 reasons to hire Steve Nash, you start off with the fact that this is fucking Steve Nash. You start off with the fact that this guy in the NBA, just look at what he did in the NBA, whether he was black, white, purple. Start there. And then when you try to flip it like Stephen A said, and he said, this doesn't happen for unqualified black men. Black coaches like Ty Lue and Mark Jackson didn't even get considered, didn't even get an interview. Yeah, they didn't get considered and didn't get an interview because they've been talking to Steve Nash for months, since May. They pretty much circled around the guy that they knew they wanted. Now, at the end of the day, this is business. At the end of the day, you make the best business decisions for your company, for your organization. And they felt like this was the best decision for the organization. And so far, I'm right there with them. And we can't act like the Brooklyn Nets aren't progressive. We can't act like the Brooklyn Nets organization hasn't already done a lot for the black community, the Brooklyn community, the LGBTQ community. They've done a lot of the things that you want to see an organization do in 2020. And I'm done with the whole narrative that they put Steve Nash into this position because he's a white guy. He's a Canadian white guy. And he's got a black card from most of the black guys that he played with. He spoke on, and we'll speak about this more, he spoke on his relationship with Kyrie, his relationship with KD. That trumps all. That type of stuff and his respect in the NBA and in NBA locker rooms, that goes beyond his race. That goes beyond him being a white guy. And I'm over that whole narrative because I see right now, we clipped up the press conference and put it on our Twitter and our Instagram. Make sure you go check it out at Talking Nets, Twitter, Instagram, leave comments, share. And I see people jumping on this narrative, and it's outside people. It's definitely not Nets fans. It's definitely just like NBA Twitter. And even, in our climate right now, and I want to say this before I kick it back to Hudson, it fits the climate right now. 2020 is a highly racial year as far as speaking on uncomfortable topics and issues and addressing them. It fits that climate. But what it doesn't fit is the reason for this hire. And I'll read a couple of the tweets that people are sending. Someone said, it's not about you, clown. This hire is a hire. It's whatever. But there was an overqualified man who did everything for the organization, everything the organization asked of him, coached a team of G Leaguers, and instead of a promotion, created a position with no purpose or equity, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let me knock this guy's shit down. Jacques Vaughn was not in the plans. Jacques Vaughn was an assistant. The business strategy, the company vision never had him as the head coach. Whether he won every single game in the bubble or not, there was already a plan in place. But you know what they did for Jacques Vaughn? They did interview him and then make him the highest paid assistant in the league just to show that respect, just to show the level of respect for what he did. So you can miss me with that argument. Someone else said white privilege exists. I've benefited from it. Oh, no, he's basically talking about what Steve Nash said. You should have put this in quotes. White privilege exists. I have benefited from it, and it needs to be recited. But I didn't benefit from white privilege in this instance where I received something over more qualified black candidates, ? Come on, man. This is peak bystander syndrome. No, it's not. Basically, what Steve Nash is saying is, I accept that everyone is calling out the white privilege that lies within this hire, but you can't exactly apply it here. If you do your research and you dig a little bit deeper, white privilege is not a motivating factor in me getting hired. And that's it from the negative people. Like someone else was like, oh, are you into this video? Seems like both pro Nash hiring and anti Nash hiring people would hate it. And I said to that person, I said, you won't please anybody, trying to please everybody. Can we move on? The Nets picked the guy that they wanted for the job, from Joe Tsai to Sean Marks to Katie and Kyrie. And I'm telling you, there was probably not much chatter of, if we hire Steve Nash, there'll be backlash because he's not black. No, it works both ways, right? There is white privilege, but there is a such thing as a white guy just being the best guy for the job.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. It comes to a question of qualification, and we even have this in our notes about, are we worried about his lack of coaching experience? And I think that factors into this debate that's being had over, what kind of a hire was this? And like you said, him being white, that's not in the top 10 things. That's not in the top 20 things that were considered when it came to this hire. You said that, he was always in the plans. He was in the plans, starting this summer when he threw his hat in the ring, but he's been in the plans for the past 20 years. You forget him and Sean Marks were teammates. They played together. And I'm damn sure that Sean Marks wasn't impressed by him because of the color of his skin. You said he could have been black, purple, whatever. It's not like we just scooped up some random white guy off the street. I mean, you want to talk about influential people in the game. He's there. He's at the top of influential people in this game. And when you have two of the most, pragmatic and opinionated and, masterful talent stars in this game, you want someone who that can level with them, that can say, listen, I've been there. I know what it is. And first off, all credit to Jacques Vaughn. What he did was amazing. He was a player in the NBA, but he wasn't Steve Nash. And a lot of these coaches out there, and something that we talked about a lot before we got this news, is we want someone who can level with KD and Kyrie and be like, listen, this is what's got to happen. It's got to be someone that they're going to respect. And we're both sure that they signed off on it because they wouldn't have him there as the coach if they wouldn't. But also, why wouldn't they sign off on him? And why wouldn't they take his advice to heart? And why wouldn't they, believe everything he says and everything that his vision is for this team? He is the peak. He is the peak candidate. So I think that's just a big, and you put it in the notes, that's a big no. We're not worried about his experience. But now I think it's time we should actually get into what he said. The big news of the day. We're recording this at 1:00, just after the press conference finished. And it was a great press conference. We enjoyed it a lot. And it started off the top with Sean Marks saying, what he wanted in a coach, what him and Joe Tsai, what they discussed and what they said was going to be what this team needed. And he said that he wanted, and this is in quotes, a connector, a communicator, and a culture driver who can continue to build this team. And I can't agree more with that sentiment. And I'm going to throw it to Keith just so he can give some thoughts right off the top about this. But I think that those are exactly what we need, especially the communicator and the culture driver, because there's a Nets culture that's there. That's a new culture that we're developing. That isn't the culture of Kenny. That isn't the culture of the next man up Nets. This is the culture of the, number one in the preseason power ranking type Nets. And I think that's something that we got to consider. But I'll toss it to you, Keith, to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, let's start off with connector. Someone's got to connect the dots from this old culture, the bench mob, the dancing on the sidelines, the Kenny Atkinson, the gritty Nets, right? The no-name Nets in the bubble and shocking the world there, to now this new era of lights, camera, action, baby. This is New York. This is KD, Kyrie. The lights are bright. We got a star-studded team with championship aspirations. Steve Nash is a star, former MVP. Everybody knows Steve Nash. He's not some random dude. He's the guy that's going to connect the dots. He's got the respect of everyone. A communicator. You heard him speak today. And if you hadn't heard him speak before, you should have already known. This is an international guy. This is a guy that is cultured, right? They talk about communicator and culture driver. He is going to drive the new culture. He's going to be able to speak to the media. He's going to be able to speak to our players. He's going to be able to handle tough situations. He already has the respect of the stars. I just love the hire even more and more that I think about it. And I think about, man, what's going to happen in the season if KD and Kyrie get into it? Who's going to step in? KD had a quote basically saying, hey, I can talk to this guy about anything. So that lets you know the level that he's on with his head coach already. I'm telling you, Steve Nash is the guy.
And we talked about that connection with KD, but we also have to talk about another connection that came about during that time that he spent, as a development coordinator, player development personnel person for the Golden State Warriors, where he said in his interview when he was asked who is going to influence you, and he said Steve Kerr. He said that Steve Kerr is a mentor, a role model, someone who came in as a rookie head coach and took a team, to the highest levels that we've seen in a long time. And I think that that's absolutely something that, should be focused on alongside the relationship with KD, with Kyrie, with all that, because having someone like that in your corner, like a Steve Kerr, who is, at this point, undisputed one of the best coaches in the NBA, maybe not the best, but he's definitely up there. It's something that it's good to have. It's great to have. And it's something that I'm very glad that he's touched on, because he, like we've talked about, he has questions to answer about his experience and about, what brought him to being hired. And to me, to have someone like that, who can be your mentor, who can be someone, you can call late at night and say, listen, I don't know how to handle this. I don't know what to do. I think that's huge. And I think that if there's any questions about his experience, about whatever it might be, to have someone like that outside of the organization that you can talk to is huge.
Yeah. And I mean, if we're talking about Steve Kerr, right, I think we mentioned it before. There's a trend in the NBA. Tyronn Lue, first-year head coach, goes and wins it. Steve Kerr, first-year head coach, goes and wins it multiple times. Nick Nurse, in his first year, figures it out, goes and wins it for Toronto, their first and maybe only ever championship. So it can be done here. And I think this model is already being followed. And I don't think I think the old days of, even when people were talking about Pop to Brooklyn, and I was laughing through that whole thing. Like, why do we think Pop is the guy? Why do we think he's going to get these guys together, get their respect? Because he's old, he's been around. Like, I think Nash is going to, I know Nash is going to have JV right next to him, Jacques Vaughn right next to him. But I think it's bigger than that. I think Nash is the guy. He's been behind the scenes. He's been kind of waiting for his time. The next thing in the notes is about him throwing his hat in the ring sometime this past summer. Yeah, you know what? 2020 was a weird year. A lot of things changed. A lot of things happened. Maybe it was just a perfect storm and perfect time. And when Sean Marks heard his friend Steve Nash wanted to potentially coach a guy that's played with stars like Kobe, like Sean Marion, like Dirk, this is a star-studded team. He can come in and lead these guys. Who better? Right now, who better? And I'm tired of the narrative of the white privilege, even with him skipping the line. We'll talk about that next. More and more, I keep thinking who else was out there and who else could it have been, and he's the right fit. Now, I just hope that they live up to all of this hype and expectations, but I think they will. I think even more so they will, because they know they have to protect this hire now. We got to go out there and win. We got to go out there and ball for Steve Nash, so it doesn't look like, oh, man, you put this guy in over his head.
Well, but that is the question, and we're going to get right into it. He was asked straight up, I believe it was by our boy Christian Winfield. He came right out and he said, do you think that you skipped the line? What do you have to say about that? And he said, I did. He did skip the line in a sense, but he also came right back and said that he led a team for 2 decades. And that kind of experience is something that you're not going to see in these other coaching options on the market, even though, we might not have even known he was on the market. Let's look at today. Billy Donovan just parted ways with the Thunder. He's looked at as one of the better options on the coaching market now that he kind of got parachuted in there. Does he have that kind of rapport with players? Did he have that kind of championship experience? Did he have that kind of, what you get from leading a team for multiple decades? But he does have that little bit of humbleness in him that, we love from our Canadian brothers. He said that he needs support, and he has that support from, like I talked about Steve Kerr, and like we got in the building, with Jacques Vaughn. And there's a lot of things we got to talk about with skipping the line. But I'll just say to Keith is, do you think that like leading a team for all this time and doing all that, do you think that that's the kind of support, that kind of, experience that you need to be able to come in as a head coach?
Hell yeah. Like, if we're trying to win, we need to be led by a winner, someone that's been in the crunch, someone that's been in the playoffs, someone that's done it before, right? If we're looking at guys like Ty Lue and Mark Jackson, they were good players, yes, but they were never MVPs. They were never to the level of a Steve Nash. Steve Nash is in a Nelly Furtado song, man. He was lit in 2006. Like, you all know this. Stop questioning it. And I don't know, with the skip the line question, right? You know what? Skipping the line, like, think about actually skipping the line. Who gets to skip the line? VIP, people on the guest list, people with special access. Steve Nash gets to skip the line.
I mean, that finishes it. That settles it. At this point, I mean, even talking about it is almost like beating a dead horse. But I think we do need to stress the fact that he came out in front of the New York and the national media in his first appearance, and he blew people away with his responses. He came out and he was eloquent. He was assured. And one of the first things I put down in my notes, and I took them by hand, I said, very poised, no stuttering, no second guessing. And that was one of the concerns that you raised about a lot of the coaching candidates that we had. And for me, I think that having him, be someone who has dealt with the national media. I mean, he went up there and he gave 2 MVP speeches. He's dealt with the media. He's dealt with all this. I don't think you get that from anyone else on the market. So you said he's a VIP and he skipped the line. People are saying he's not experienced. I don't get that. That, to me, the more and more that we discuss it, the more and more that we talk about it, it doesn't make any sense. So honestly, I'm just going to leave that there, and I'm going to, get into some more of like the nitty gritty about what he said. He did get questions about his style. He said he'd go out there and he was going to be himself on the sidelines. He wasn't going to conform to anyone else's expectations. He said he doesn't know if he's going to be a yeller. He doesn't see himself as someone who's going to go out there and yell all the time. But I think this is just another example of him going out there and being eloquent and showing the media that he's going to give him exactly what he wants to give him, just the way he played basketball. Nothing that the other team gets, nothing that the New York media is going to get, something that he didn't want them to get. And I mean, I know I feel great about it, and I'm sure you feel great about it, but I'll let you talk more about that.
Yeah, there's a saying that those that can do, those that can't coach. Basically saying if you weren't good enough to play and do it yourself, you probably good enough to coach. If you didn't make it to that highest level of athleticism, well, you could probably figure out how to be coaches. And a lot of us probably know some people in their hometowns that are football coaches, basketball coaches, baseball coaches, but they weren't even that great themselves in high school or college, but they got the coaching gig. Look at this guy. This is Steve Nash. The level of experience that he has on the court is a level that majority of the coaches in the NBA do not have. So are we going to count against him because he doesn't have experience calling timeouts, making in-game adjustments? Those are things he can learn. Those are things he will have Jacques Vaughn next to him to say, hey, coming up right here, we need to take a timeout after this possession. And that's why you have the highest paid assistant coach in Jacques Vaughn, who just worked with this team, was under Kenny Atkinson, and then had the team on his own. So I don't know. I'm kind of off all of that, man. Let's move forward and just talk about his relationship, with the players. I'm not worried about him on the sideline. I know he's going to be good in the, post-game press conferences. I know he's got the respect of the team. I'm telling you, it is going to go a long way that the best player on our team is KD, and he's got rapport with KD.
He has that rapport from that time at Golden State, but he did come out and he said he didn't talk to KD prior to applying to the job, but he has talked to him since. Same with Kyrie.
Lies. That's
not
a
true.
lie.
Absolutely not true. There's not a chance that that's true. Absolutely not.
I get it. That's what you're supposed to say to the media, but that's a goddamn lie. If you guys are on the level where you talk like that, okay, you got to say that in the media because the media wants to twist things and say this was a Kevin Durant hire. Okay.
The media wants their narratives. They want their narratives over the facts. So just let the narratives, sit and let them not do anything. And obviously it's another example of him just killing it with the media. But if we're talking about his relationship with his stars and his players, I'm going to skip ahead and I'm going to talk about one of my favorite quotes of his from the night. He says that he sees those stars and those players as his friends first. And he said he had the same mentality when he was a player. And he said he wants things to be enjoyable and honest. He wants there to be a rapport between him, between his players, between everybody. And he said, and this is a quote here, start to finish, it's to genuinely care about each other. And man, in my own notes, I wrote wow after that because, that's all I got to say about that. Wow.
Yeah. Players coach. This guy played against KD, played against Kyrie. Of course, he's going to be a player's coach. He said Kyrie is one of his favorite players of all time. This guy is a basketball fan. He's a basketball savant. He recognizes Kyrie's talent is so rare. He says that he's one of his favorite players of all time. There's a lot of players that could be in Steve Nash's favorite players of all time, and I'm so excited to see what these two do together, what their relationship becomes. 2-point gods. Let's see what these guys work on and what they become together. Like it's got to excite you as a Nets fan. Come on, man. We're blessed right now. We have hit the jackpot. We've kept things quiet secretly, and we just keep winning. I don't know how many wins is going to lead to, but I'm thinking championship, bro. I don't know. I'm elated. I'm so happy with everything. I can't find a negative. I can't look at the situation and say there's anything wrong.
Talk about 1-point god to another. Do you think Ty Lue or even Brad Stevens is giving Kyrie that kind of advice? Absolutely not. Not a chance. Because
not
they
to cut
can't.
you off. Not to cut you off, but I'm glad you brought that up. Kyrie is the type of guy you gotta earn his respect. At least it seems. Ty Lue, not getting the respect. I don't even know if he had his respect when he coached him and LeBron to the championship. That was him and LeBron coaching that team. I think Steve Nash has his respect. Go on.
I mean, how can he not have his respect? We talked about this before coming onto the podcast, but I'm going to say it again. This isn't some random white guy. This isn't like we hired. I mean, I don't even know. I don't want to drag any random white guys in the NBA, but this isn't like we hired Kyle Korver.
Right. And I think I threw out a media person like Brian Windhorst or really a picture the Nets in this position hiring a no-name white guy that no one knows. Then we're looking at them like, yeah, he skipped the line. This is white privilege. Why this guy? But Steve Nash, throw all that other bullshit away and just Google Steve Nash.
And one thing he said about Kyrie, and I'm going to throw that out there again, is he said he admired his social justice efforts. And we're going to get into some more questions about white privilege. But you want to get Kyrie's respect? Honestly, you compliment him. And he did. And why wouldn't he? Because Kyrie's doing the right stuff.
Yeah, and he complimented him on things that don't have to do with basketball. And I think I said a couple episodes ago, hey, when they look back at 2020, they're going to be talking about what Kyrie did, and it's got nothing to do with the NBA bubble. Kyrie made moves for a lot of people and helped a lot of people out. And Nash also spoke on how Kyrie is pushing forward for the WNBA. These guys say and do the right thing so much. I don't know how anyone could question it. This is like Voltron forming. This is the Avengers coming together. We are going to control the basketball universe in Brooklyn. The East is ours. And I don't know. I'm getting excited for it. The Yankees are sucking ass right now. NBA for us, the playoffs have been great. And I guess we'll talk about that forever. But NBA for us Nets fans right now is preparing and plotting and planning for this new era and what it's going to be. And every day that passes is another day closer.
And we're planning and plotting for 2021. So we're going to give another shout out to our guy, Robert the Tree Guy, who said it isn't all about 2021. It absolutely is all about 2021.
I hope he's still listening to the pod. I hope he's still
too.
a fan. I hope
Me
he's
too.
still
Maybe you can go back and change that review, Robert the Tree Guy.
Nah, leave it, bro. Leave it, bro, because I'm going to always remember that one. Someone said it wasn't about 2021. These guys only talk about 2021 like this year doesn't matter. Well, the organization told you multiple times that it doesn't matter, and we are now all officially on to 2021.
So let's finish it though. Let's finish when it comes to the player discussion, the KD Kyrie talk. He came out. He said he wants to work with KD, and not just wants, it's a privilege to work with someone like KD, who was always trying to learn and grow as a person and as a basketball player. But he stressed that, he wants to learn and grow as a person. And you talked about how he talked about, Kyrie doing stuff off the court. KD's working there too. He's doing that stuff too, and he's growing as a person too. And it's just another example of, great relationships, being a player's coach, especially to someone like KD, who has had to deal with, the snake moniker and all that his whole career. Say, no, KD is always growing as a person. And this time with him on this team is going to be another period of growth for KD, both on the court and off the court. But let me just finish and let's talk about his style, right? So someone came out and they asked, listen, how are you going to play? They got right down to the, the nitty gritty, the nuts and bolts, the whatever. And he said he doesn't know yet. It's TBD, which is, the party line, the right answer. But he came out and he led with, he's going to focus on the defensive end and then let the stars play their game on offense, which that's exactly what I want to hear. I don't know about you, but I'll let you go. That's shit. Awesome.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. That's exactly what we need. We know KD's going to score. We know Kyrie's going to score. We know we got a bunch of other guys that can score it. But yeah, there was a lot of times in this past season where like, what the fuck are they doing on defense? I mean, from the Kenny era to the Jacques Vaughn era, Jacques, I think, was better at making some adjustments. But, we can't knock Kenny either. Kenny made some adjustments late before he got his job taken from him, where we're like, okay, Kenny, we see what you've done. So yes, focus on the defense. We got plenty of guys that can score it. We need to stop guys.
You talked about Jacques' adjustments. So let's get into him. Let's get into, I guess, the sadder part of this press conference, talking about how JV, he came in second. And Mark said it was tough to tell him that he came in second. But he said it's going to be a collaborative effort. It's going to come from the top down. And of course, that's going to include JV. And I'm just going to point out, this is my favorite part about this Steve Nash hire. Aside from the hire, aside from everything else, we got Jacques Vaughn back. Because for all of that experience that we talked about that Steve Nash has, like you said, he might not know when to call timeouts. He might not know how to make those instant tactical adjustments. But we got Jacques Vaughn, who is, potentially one of the leading head coaching candidates on the market if he would have entered the free market, as our top assistant. And he's going to be right there in Nash's ears. And I can guarantee you that without him, the Nets are an absolutely 100% worse team.
Yeah. And when you think about it, I think about it like this, right? There's open spots. There are teams that were, potentially going to look at someone like a Jacques Vaughn. Kenny hasn't scooped a job yet. I don't know if Kenny's going to land a head coaching spot, but Jacques Vaughn, after what he did with this team, I think he was going to draw some interest. And you know what he decided? Nah, I'm going with Brooklyn. I'm going to get cash here. And most importantly, I'm going to get a ring here. I'm going to stay where my chances to win a championship are highest. I'm not going to go to Philly or go to Indiana or OKC or somewhere and struggle. I'm going to stay here where I already live, where I've already been, where I played, where I know these players. And I know that this organization cares about me, even if they didn't make me the head coach. They made the New York splash hire, Steve Nash. But you know what, Jacques Vaughn, I think his demeanor anyway, I don't think he minds being the second guy. I don't think he minds not getting the head coaching job because he's still valued by the organization. And if, anybody needs to question that, just look at the dollars they gave him, man. He is going to be an integral part of everything. And Sean Marks spoke and said, it's tough. That's a tough conversation to have with a guy like Jacques Vaughn. He obviously deserved it. We were on this podcast debating him versus Popovich. We were on this podcast weeks ago saying, what else does he have to do to get the job? That was never the question. There was never a question of what else does he have to do. He wasn't going to get that job. The plan was already in place. Other things just had to fall in place. And I'm so thankful that he's still on this coaching staff. He's still going to be a part of this team. His voice is still going to be in that locker room. So all those people saying, oh, there was a black guy that was more qualified. Yeah, that black guy, he decided to stay, though. He might have been more qualified, but he didn't look at the hiring of Steve Nash as a slight. He didn't look at the hiring of Steve Nash as a smack in the face to him. He looked at it as, okay, I understand what we're doing here. I respect Steve Nash as well. Oh, you guys are going to ante up and make me the highest paid assistant in the NBA, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going with Brooklyn.
And that just feeds into exactly what Steve Nash said when he was asked about it. He said Jacques was an all-around top human being, and we can't agree with that more. I can't agree with him more. I know Keith can't. And then came the end of the press conference where he finished and he said he's excited for the challenges and excited for the tough times. Those are the things that he's looking forward to. And he's just grateful to be able to work with such a great group of people. And at that point, when I heard him say that, I was just like, you did it. 10 out of 10. You killed it exactly, perfectly, as well as you can. It's a green release. It's everything that you would ever want from a first press conference.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. And I love watching these Yes Network press conferences, whether it's, Garrett Cole being announced as a Yankee, putting on the Yankee jersey for the first time back in December. I thought that was great. But in this quick, I don't know, maybe it was 30 minutes max, he knocked it out of the park. And I'm starting to look at him like, yes, this is our guy. This is our head coach. I'm starting to see him in a suit courtside. I'm starting to see him. He's taking the pictures in front of the white backdrop with the Nets polo on. And I'm like, this is the leader of the Brooklyn Nets team that's going to bring a championship back to New York. Well done, Joe Tsai. Well done, Sean Marks. Now let's get to work. I can't wait to see what these guys do from this point on to next year. Hopefully we can get back in the Barclays Center. Hopefully we can win a bunch of games and, live up to the hype, which I think we will. There's too much talent on this team, too many smart people in this organization. It's not going to be a letdown. We're going to get it done.
Absolutely not. And I'm absolutely excited for it. But we do have some more around the NBA news to talk about. We can't have a basketball podcast and not talk about what's going on in the playoffs right now. Keith, we got big movements. We got the Lakers going up 2-1 on the Rockets after Russell Westbrook shot 2 of 12 from 3. Yikes. Those are Garrett Temple type numbers. Yikes.
Russ, what are you doing, bro?
They're leaving him open and he's breaking them. So I would keep leaving him open.
Mm-hmm.
Another great series in the West. We got the Clippers up 2-1 on the Nuggets. Kawhi, one finger, gave the middle finger to Jamal Murray. Blocked that shot at the rim, standing block. God damn. Talk about awesome. Who's the best player in the NBA. To me, it's Kawhi.
To me, it's Bron, but I hear you.
To you is Bron, to me is Kawhi. Listen. The fact that there's even that discussion is, I think, to the credit of Kawhi more than it is to the credit of LeBron, because LeBron's been that his whole career. And then we got the East. And let me tell you, the East ain't as interesting as the West. We've got the Celtics up 3-2 on the Raptors going into a Game 6 that's going to be played tonight. So we're recording on Wednesday. The game will have already happened. The Celtics could already be moving on. And then we've got a team getting sent home. We've got the Heat sending the Bucks home in the 4-1 victory. Wasn't the sweep that they wanted, but it's the victory that they got anyways. We had Tyler Hero ball out. We had Tyler Hero maybe turning into the next Steve Nash. Talk about white guys in the NBA.
That's my guy. I love Tyler
I saw
Hero.
You post that photo that Jimmy Butler put
on. All right, now I got to talk about Tyler Hero. From the jump, Kentucky coming in the league, when the Heat drafted him, I was like, ooh, I'm like, yo, this is the type of kid that will come in and ball right away. He's not afraid. He's 20 years old. He shoots his shot. He's my rookie of the year on the court and off the court. I think I spoke on this podcast about how he bagged Katya Elise Henry, the Instagram model. She's bad. And, I mean, for him to be a 20-year-old dude down in Miami to bag a chick like that, I think she's like 27 or 28. But, like, she's got hella Instagram followers. Dude's thirsting over her. Tyler Hero's out there making buckets, pulling Instagram chicks during quarantine. I'm like, look at this guy go. And we talk about Steve Nash having a black card. You know Tyler Hero's got a black card. He gets a pass. He's good in the hood. This guy had the do-rag on. Jimmy Butler posted him on Instagram. He had the do-rag on saying, like, getting my waves right. I've seen him with the cornrows. Like, yo, he's a hooper. He just gets it. He's got some brother tendencies. I like this guy a lot. And, I mean, I just like the Heatles, their whole band, Jimmy Butler. They got Iguodala. AI's not done. He's looking to get back to another finals. Jay Crowder, Gordon Dragic. even Derrick Jones Jr., Kelly Olynyk, Kendrick Nunn. Like, they just got
They
so
got
many.
Bam.
Bam, how am I forgetting Bam? Like, they just have so many guys that I enjoy watching, and they have a dope team that can make a run in this bubble, and they are. They knocked Giannis and them the fuck out. And we should talk about Giannis, man. That ankle injury that he suffered in the one game that the Bucks were able to man up and win, I knew that didn't mean anything. I knew it was just like, it's a weird energy. But you know what? I immediately thought, I think I tweeted something like, yo, it'd be crazy if this is his last game in the Bucks uniform and he goes somewhere else. Like, we saw KD get hurt in his last game in a Warriors uniform and go somewhere else. I really think Giannis is out of there. He's got a young kid. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, ain't where it at. He's not even American. So why not open it up and figure out where you want to be in this country, where you want to raise your family, where you want to live, and where you want to compete to win a championship. Some people are throwing the Heat out there. I've already seen the Photoshop of him in a Heat jersey next to Jimmy Buckets. But I'm throwing Brooklyn out there. I don't see a lot of people talking about it, but I'm like, why not? We're talking about third stars. Why not put him with KD and Kyrie? I can dream.
I mean, here's what I'm saying. He's coming from poverty and squalor in Greece. Now he's a multimillionaire, the best player maybe in the NBA, not in the playoffs, but he, two-time MVP, defensive player of the year. And he wants to take all that money and live for the rest of his life in Milwaukee? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. He's coming from the sun, from the beaches of Greece, and he wants to spend his time in Milwaukee. Why not come to the greatest city in the world? Why not come with the greatest hoopers in the world, with KD, with Kyrie? I mean, Pooch went out there and he said it. He just straight up said it. He said, the Nets are a potential landing spot with the assets we have to send. I wouldn't put us in the top tier of potential places with the Heat and the Raptors are my two top contenders. But I think in the next tier, I think it's us and the Warriors. And why not? Here's the thing. I don't want to trade Karras. I like Karras. We love Karras on the podcast. We love him. But you trade him for Giannis.
Hell yeah.
You trade anyone for Giannis.
There's not even a question. I love Karras too. But if it's a package with Giannis, give me Antetokounmpo. It's like, what did it cost? Like in Avengers, what did it cost? Karis LeVert. That's fine.
Like we love him. We love our guy. But like, I mean, you trade whoever you can to get Giannis, because at this point, the Nets have the draw. The Nets have the glamour. There's no reason why we can't get him. We have the assets. And at this point, I'm just thinking, why not us? Because we've done it. We've got the stars. We've got the star coach. Why not bring in that last star, that best player, that MVP? Because we got it going on in Brooklyn, Keith.
We could. I'm not saying that it can't happen. I'm not going to put it past them. Like, they could top this whole thing off. They could send Spencer over there. They could send Karras over there. They could send Jared Allen over there.
And we could if we run those three players on the court only, 3v5, we're still winning 50 games. So send whoever you want. I mean, we got 2 firsts we can send. We got the 19th pick, whatever. I don't care. Send it all.
Get it done. Man. Why not? The Nets have done so much, man. Like, we can dream. New Jersey lottery, it pays to dream. Come on, New Jersey Nets fans. It's finally our time. Maybe we get Giannis and we have 2 MVPs on this team. Like, the Rockets have 2 MVPs. And I don't know. What I'm thinking about, honestly, with the NBA and the complexion of the NBA right now, I think it ends up, and I'll ask you your take on this, I think it ends up Lakers, Clippers. And I think the Lakers figure out a way to beat the Clippers so LeBron can go back to another finals. I just, with the addition of Rondo coming back and some guys like Morris hitting shots and even like Kuz late and Caruso, it's like they're starting to figure it out in the Lake show. And I mean, the Clippers are good, but I don't know. I think if it's Lakers, Clippers, LeBron is gonna, he's gonna take that. And then when you look at the East, now the Bucks are out. They were the number 1 seed. I think it's the Heat, man. I think the Heat beat the Celtics. I've been pulling for the Heat through this whole thing. So Heat, Lakers, I want to take the Lakers. And then when you look at the NBA, like, the East is going to change, and we're in for another NBA summer. It's going to be an NBA fall. It's going to be a fall into winter. But you guys know how crazy free agency is and the NBA summer is. So things are going to change. The complexion is going to change. I hope LeBron gets a ring. Who are you thinking for, I guess, your final four and then the championship game, looking at the NBA landscape right now in the playoff bubble?
Well, I got the same thought as you. I'd love it if the Nuggets can pull it out. I think the Nuggets are a fun team. They're a young team. I think they're going to be good for a long time. I think when you talk about teams that have staying power to be as good as they are into the future, I think the Nuggets are actually the most hopeful to have that in the West right now, just with everyone's age and with the way things are shaking out and with the LA teams. I do think the Lakers are going to pull it out. I don't think the Rockets can keep up with them, especially if Russell Westbrook just continues being bad. I like the Clippers in that series. I mean, it'd be fun if the Nuggets won, but I think the Clippers win that. If Paul George starts playing like playoff P, now that he shook this whole this mental health issue that he had going on, and he's back to balling, that team is back to being deadly. They're back to being my favorites to come out of the West and to win the playoffs. And then in the East, it feels pretty cut and dry to me. We're going to have Heat Celtics. And I like the Heat there. And I love the Miami LA energy for a final series. Like, I know it's a shame they're not going to be able to travel to each other's locations and all that, which would be awesome. But I like the energies of both of those teams. I like the energies of, even if it's the Lakers, I like all of that. I think there's storylines abound, but I think those storylines are kind of coming to a close. I think the NBA, like you said, is entering a new era. And that era is going to be led by your Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, man, I love it. You just made me think, all right? Like, what a storyline for the Heat to face LeBron. You know, LeBron brought them a couple of championships. Now they're trying to get another championship with a whole nother team and stop LeBron from getting his next ring. Hey, it could happen. And like you just said, the future is going to shift, right? The NBA landscape is going to shift after this bubble, after this NBA fall, free agency, draft, everything. It's going to shift to everyone pointing to Brooklyn and saying they're the favorites, they're the favorites, they're the favorites. And even the Warriors coming back. Let's see what they do in the draft. Some people put out Giannis going to the Warriors. I'm like, no, please no. They might be the favorites in the West if they're all healthy and they get, a draft pick. Like, who knows? I don't even want to throw out anything good their way. But, man, it's going to be fun. We are in the last quarter of this year, last third of this year. And it's going to fly by. It's September now. Next thing you know, it'll be Halloween, then Thanksgiving, then Christmas. And, hey, they're trying to restart the NBA around then. So I'm looking forward to everything. Hudson and I will keep coming to you guys every Thursday, Wednesday night into Thursday, just talking Nets news, NBA topics. And what we need you to do to keep things going is to write a review. I know I ask every single time, but I was watching Fantasy Pros getting ready for, fantasy drafts. And all these guys did was say, write a review. They threw out some giveaways. They said, when we hit our 700 review, we're going to do this big package. And they had a bunch of things. So maybe we'll get there too. I know my guy, BG, Brandon Graves, he wrote us a nice review. I got a t-shirt going out to him. So, hey, if you write a review, we got you. And we got one. I think this is from Friday that I want to read, or Sunday, actually. And this guy goes by the name Deadass, must be a New Yorker. He writes, great podcast, 5 stars. They are very educated on the Nets history, and their passion is great. Keep it up, guys. Yeah, I know a little bit. I wouldn't say I'm that educated on all of it, but, this is the type of thing where you learn more every day, week, month, this year. And we like to sound like we know what we're talking about. I think we're both pretty smart guys. So we thank you for that review. Deadass, thanks.
And we're just having fun here. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep having fun because the Nets are going to keep giving us good times.
Yeah, man. And I'm just so excited. I hope we can get back into the stadium. I hope we can go to Media Day when they do Media Day next year. I'll have to hit up Yes Network or BSE Global or somebody, get us some press credentials and just keep covering the Nets and let the bandwagon fill up. And you tell a friend to tell a friend, yo, I listen to this guy, Keith, this kid Hudson. They do talking Nets. They talk about the Nets in the NBA. I'm kind of leaning into being a Nets fan. I'm kind of leaning into following the Nets. Now is the time. So if you want to be on this podcast, I'm telling you, it's very simple. Call the voicemail. Tell us what you think about Steve Nash. If you feel like this is white privilege or you feel like Steve Nash has no experience, hey, don't tweet it. call up the voicemail. It's 201-870-0461. We will put your voice on the podcast. It doesn't have to always be me and Hudson. I also do a Yankee podcast called Pinstripe Strong. And our last episode was all voicemails because the Yankees have lost 15 of their last 20 games. So we're letting fans just voice their frustrations and get it out. And it creates a great dynamic for a podcast. So call and leave a voicemail. Also, make sure you follow us on social media. Hudson and I are working on the Twitter and Instagram. And we're going to keep cranking stuff out, even though the Nets aren't playing. There's news like today. We covered the whole press conference. Got some people buzzing about that. Follow us at Talking Nets on Instagram and Twitter. Also follow the company, the overarching brand at John Boy Media on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, everything else like that. We're also on YouTube at Talking Nets. This episode will go out on podcast and YouTube now. I don't know if I say that enough. That video from the podcast will be on our YouTube, so also subscribe there. You can follow me at Keith McPherson on Instagram, on Twitter. You can follow Hudson Flynn at
Hudson Flynn _ on Instagram and Twitter.
Pretty simple, man. We're not clowns out here. We're not hiding behind fake pictures or screen names or putting 5 numbers at the end of our handle. So you can find us by our government names. Make sure you subscribe, rate, review the pod. Once again, it's helping us. It makes us look good as we're talking in the company, as we're talking to outside companies, as we're talking to other brands. One thing that they look at the podcast, it just is what it is. They look at your ratings and reviews. We haven't been around that long. We haven't been around a year. We've been around, I don't know, like 10 months. So the more ratings and reviews we have will drive up our stock. And that's all we've got for you. Hudson, you got anything else for the people out there?
Nah, I'm all good. I'm just hype, and I hope everyone else is hype.
Yeah, I'm hyped too. And every week that passes, every day that passes, we're closer to this new era. And it's just going to be wins raining in. I cannot wait to close my eyes and wake up in the Barclays Center for your Brooklyn Nets 2021 team featuring KD and Kyrie, the Brooklyn Brigade, and everybody else in the arena saying, "Let's go Nets, Brooklyn."